Welcome to Airway Exchange, the podcast for empowering educators and inspiring future CRNAs, a new series of Beyond the Mask supported by AANA.
We're your host team. I'm Greg Collins.
I'm Nikki D'Amico.
I'm Erin Martin.
And I'm Louisa Martin. We're here to support the community of CRNA educators with conversations to explore, learn, and grow.
To pursue excellence in the evolving field of nurse anesthesia education.
And to champion our students and enrich the future of the profession.
This is Airway Exchange.
Welcome back to Airway Exchange. I'm Louisa Martin, and thank you for joining us and tuning into our 6th episode. Our theme this month is wellness, and this is the first of 3 episodes on wellness. And this week, I'm really excited. We have some special nurse anesthesia educator guests who are experts in the arena of wellness. And specifically, this episode, we're going to be talking about the important and I think sometimes overlooked topic of faculty wellness and work-life balance. I'm also joined in this episode by my co-host, Erin Martin. Erin, how are you doing tonight?
Good to be here and also excited about this topic.
Great. So I'm going to briefly introduce our guests. We have Dr. Leigh Taylor. Dr. Taylor graduated as a nurse anesthetist from the Middle Tennessee School of Anesthesia's nursing anesthesia program in 2013. She's been a practicing CRNA since. She also taught at MTSA for a while, but since has moved to Connecticut, Fairfield, Connecticut, where she is the assistant program director for the nurse anesthesia program at Fairfield University. And Dr. Taylor is serving now as the chair of the AANA's Wellness Committee. She's been involved with wellness in some capacity for quite some time. So, Leigh, we're really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And we're also joined by Dr. Crystal Hunnicutt. Dr. Hunnicutt is a native of Southwest Virginia and lives in Big Stone Gap. She received her Bachelor of Science in Nursing in 2002 from the University of Virginia's College at Wise, and she received her Master of Science in Nurse Anesthesia from Virginia Commonwealth University, or VCU, in 2007, and then her Doctor of Nursing Anesthesia Practice degree also from VCU in 2010. She taught and was program director for some time at Lincoln Memorial University, but recently in January of this year joined the faculty at VCU, where she's serving as an assistant program director there. I read that you are the director of Southwest Operations. Dr. Hunnicutt is serving alongside Leigh in the vice chair role of the AANA's Wellness Committee. So next year, she will serve as chair of the AANA's Wellness Committee. And I'm super excited to be a member of the AANA's Wellness Committee, working under their amazing and genuinely passionate leadership. So to get us started, I'd love to hear from both of you kind of anything you want to add that I missed in your very brief bios. And if you could tell us how you got interested in wellness, and specifically if you could each tell us, was there a defining moment either personally or in your career where either the presence of wellness or lack thereof made a difference and an impact and kind of helped you realize maybe that wellness is something you wanted to get more involved with or knowledgeable about? Leigh, you want to go first?
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to. What a great loaded question. I feel like I could answer it from so many different facets of my life. I think it's always been a part of me to some extent, just a healthy lifestyle. I've really valued exercise. I think that that's been something that's been really important to me. I found and learned early on that when I stopped exercising, that was when I probably needed it the most in my life. And then I think as a student, some of that took a backseat. Lifestyle changed, finances changed. I think being a student, there were some situations that I felt like I was in a really rigid program. And I got a great education at MTSA. I'm defined by so much of what I learned at that time. But it was a different time period. You know, you were expected, it didn't matter what was happening in your personal life. You needed to be in that OR set up, ready to go 6 a.m. I think there were many times during my training that I was just like, I really don't know if this is the best way. So that was something. And then after graduation, lost a very, very close friend to suicide. And I think that was really what made me go back and get my doctorate, because I felt really guilty. And like, this would probably be a podcast on its own, me just kind of telling you this story, but I felt really guilty and I couldn't do anything about it. And so I just decided education was the key to maybe fix that, and ended up making my doctorate about substance use disorder, early identification, and what we could do in the workplace to support our CRNAs, because that's what I was finding as a CRNA. There were no resources as a CRNA. There was nothing there for me. I have a very vivid memory of a patient death and then 30-minute turnover and doing the next case. And I'm just, once again, having this moment like, this isn't the right way. This isn't how this should be happening. So like several things that I think just really led me into this direction and got me interested, because I didn't feel like I had the tools or the resources or the support. And so I wanted to be that for other people.
Thank you for your honesty and vulnerability and sharing your stories. And thank you now for turning those challenging experiences, into something positive and giving back to the profession. So what about you, Crystal? What led you to your interest in wellness?
Well, surprising enough, my story kind of mirrors Leigh's. I went to school through VCU, and like I said, I worked, 2 degrees and came back to work. So obviously I have a passion for working there and for VCU, and I was really supported through there. But I graduated with a small cohort in Abingdon, Virginia, and so there was only 5 of us. And then when we left there, when I started working in a rural community hospital, I started working with one of my fellow colleagues who had graduated. Long story short, he struggled, went down a path with substance use disorder, and then we ended up losing him he was 39 when he took his own life. And when I say that, we're not sure if it was an intentional loss. All we know is that, he was gone. So that is really kind of what spurred me on is, losing him. And we did everything that I guess you shouldn't do in that, event. We enabled, we covered up, we, did all those things because I didn't want to be wrong and I didn't want to ruin someone's life. And then, like I said, when we lost him, I thought I've got to make something positive out of this. And I asked his sister, if I could tell his story, without necessarily saying his name. But she said if it saved one person's life, to feel free. So that was, a big point in my career that I felt like I needed to, educate and proceed. And then, as I always say, if you are a faculty member, we always say if you're a hammer, you always see nails. If you're a faculty member, you always see students. And I see them struggle. And, it's not like life stops when they're in class. They still have financial difficulties. They still have home life issues. There's still so many things going on. And I think being compassionate and helping them can go a long way with keeping them in the career. I tell people this a lot, is most of what we learned was from kindergarten, right? Just be nice to each other, right? That's all we have to do, be nice and help. That's really what got me along in wellness, is my desire to help others.
Well, thank you too for your service and giving back to the profession. I think one of the goals, for all the hosts on the podcast was to be a place where we can have sometimes difficult conversations and have honest conversations that are meaningful and make a difference. And these, I think, conversations are sensitive and sometimes hard to have. And but I think those are the ones that can make the most difference. And I think that we've talked about a lot in the Wellness Committee, speaking up can help stop the stigma and make it easier for people who are afraid to speak up to find their voice and say something. So thank you both. So can you tell me, Leigh, I'll go back to you and then back to you, Crystal. What do you think about kind of the state of faculty wellness in our profession right now? We talk a lot about, and I kind of did a very quick search in the literature. There's not a lot on faculty wellness. So maybe there's a research project out of this podcast. But what are your thoughts on current faculty wellness? It doesn't have to be evidence-based, just anecdotally. What are your thoughts on that?
I love this question. I can tell you the exact moment where I was when I first had a thought about faculty wellness. It was April 2020, and the world had changed and we had transitioned all of our education online. Students weren't allowed in the OR. We were fighting to get our students back into the OR. We were panicked about them graduating. The stress load was so high, and I was just trudging ahead and trying to teach and make it work. And I'd had a baby in January of 2020 as well. And I remember speaking to the program director, and he was like, everybody is so worried about the student wellness, but nobody's asking me how I'm handling this. And I had this light bulb moment, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, how am I doing that? I don't know how I'm handling all of this. And I think that was really eye-opening for me because I hadn't considered myself in the process before that moment. And to go back to your original question, like, what is the state right now? I would say it's very poor. And I can contribute that. Once again, these are all my own thoughts. Nothing is research based here, but I've noticed a shift in anesthesia practice. And we have fewer and fewer W-2 CRNAs. We have more 1099, more travelers. So the workforce is short-staffed and nobody has any skin in the game. That's driven salaries very high. And I think that that shift in the workforce has really translated to we're short-staffed in our universities. We have fewer people who are sticking around because why am I in a salary where I could be making X doing this? And then in several weeks, I could go to the next place. And so I think right now we are all, those of us in education, drastically underpaid. And we're doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people. And that doesn't make for happy, healthy faculty members by any means. So I hate to say it, but I really feel like the workforce is down and negative right now from a wellness perspective.
You bring up a great point about, and this isn't a knock on those who are working locum jobs, but I think that the staffing shortage has probably really changed the cultures of our work groups. And so whereas, when you work with this group of 20 people and you're like, oh, I know that Louisa's kid has soccer tonight, I'm going to get you out. You go and I'm going to stay late. That kind of a culture and supportive culture in our work groups obviously enhances wellness, right, in the workforce. I do think that there's a change in that. And of course, if those work groups are places where we have students, I think the students feel that as well, and they're absorbing that. And yeah, I'd never considered that. So thanks for bringing that up, Leigh.
Like I said, I don't have any data to back any of that up, but it's just a trend that I've seen and things that have changed. And do I feel more stressed and overwhelmed now than I did in 2020? Yeah, at times. I just think the workforce has changed. The workload has changed. The student stress and burnout has changed from 2020 to now. I just feel like there's been some big changes in CRNA practice.
How about you, Crystal? What are your thoughts on the status of wellness among the faculty workforce?
I'm going to have to agree. I think very deficient. And I think a lot of the problem, and again, not evidence-based by any means, is a lot to do with we want to role model for our students and we want to show them this positive side. So sometimes we take in things that would, maybe we would react to or we would want some help with, but we try to act like, oh, that's no big deal. It's okay. Bring your problems to me. I'll worry about those for you. And instead of seeking help ourselves. I've not met a faculty member who, if I ask them to do something or talk about what they're involved in, they don't have a list a mile long, right? And then we, kind of go for every shiny thing, right? Because one thing is we want to help. We enjoy teaching. We love what we do. But I also feel like we don't know the word no. And so we overextend and it's a vicious cycle. We get tired. We don't take care of ourselves. And then, like I said, for example, I worked at a rural hospital for years practicing and precepting students. They put me in and people that know me know this because the worst case you could put me in is pediatric dental. Every Friday I was put in pediatric dental. But you know what I did? I smiled because there was a student there and I was like, oh, this is great. Pediatric dental, yay. And it wasn't until a student wasn't there one day and I walked in that room and I saw my name on the board beside pediatric dental. I was like, why are you doing this to me? And they were like, oh, we thought you liked it. So retrospectively, I made my own negative world because I was trying to show the students, oh, I'll do anything because I want them to do that, right? I want them to walk into any case and be like, I want to learn this. So I was trying so hard to do that. So again, that's my long way around saying is I think we don't seek help. We don't speak up. We just keep trudging along.
Yeah, I agree with you, Crystal. And I feel like I'm role modeling, like you said, like I'm not complaining. If someone asks me to do some work, I'm doing it. I love how you said that. You've created your own enemy here because I keep doing good work and no, we don't need more help. You're doing X, Y, and Z. So,
and you're smiling and saying, I love it.
Yeah, and you're showing up the next day. I know. I think that's a good point. And maybe this goes back to nursing. We do not do a good job advocating for ourselves. I think our colleagues and other aspects of other faculty colleagues, they advocate for themselves financially, from a workload perspective. And I don't see that from my nursing colleagues.
And don't you think, too, that when we do try to advocate for ourselves and try to change this culture, it's not always welcomed warmly, right? I even think with our students, we may try to model it and say, it may be 3 days before I get back to your email, right? Like we tell students a reasonable amount of time to expect a response to an email is 3 business days. Well, good grief. We're finding, and I don't know if you guys do too, but you didn't get back to me. Well, you sent that email on Friday at 5 and it's now Monday at 8. And so, so I think as much as we try to model, we live in a culture where there is so much instant response, instant gratification, all of that when we do try to model this, it's not always well received. So I think we have I don't have an answer to this, but I think another interesting thing to ponder is how do we change that culture when the hustle culture is so rewarded, right? Oh, I don't know how she does it. She does it all. She's answering emails at 10 o'clock at night. She's so dedicated. So when you don't answer emails after 5, the flip side of that is, are you less dedicated or are you just trying to be well? I don't know. Crystal and Leigh, do you have any input on how we change that?
Well, I think we have to change it personally, and I'm the world's worst. So I'm going to 100% tell you that I'm telling you something that maybe I don't actually follow, but I do believe in it. So I think, we have to change personally first, but we also as a group, maybe just, if say you want to answer the email at 10 p.m. because you want to be that dedicated employee, but you have to realize that impacts your colleague, right? So your colleague who has set normal boundaries and isn't going to answer till 8 on a Monday now looks like they're not doing their job because you're Johnny on the spot. So, and I guess maybe I'll ask Leigh if you've got any suggestions for that. But I feel like we almost have to do it as a united front, as a team, right?
Oh, absolutely. We had a keynote speaker when I was at MTSA, one of the graduation, and he spoke about your life resume. He's talked about how our work resume, we have CRNA after our name, we have DNP or PhD. That's your work resume. And you really have to think about what's going to be on my life resume? And if you don't have things that you're listing on that, then you're not in balance here. And so whenever I am at 10 p.m. looking at my email, I'm thinking okay, this is not my life resume. My family, my friends, my interests, those are things that I need to cultivate. And I think it all comes back to boundaries. And it's easy to say, I have boundaries. I'm not going to check my email after 5. I'm not going to answer these text messages, but it's not easy. It's definitely a practice. You have to say it and you have to set it and then you have to do it. And then one thing that I've started incorporating now is I have to mentor it, because as I work with new faculty and I see them answering emails at 10 p.m., remind them, that's not the expectation of the job. No one is expecting you to answer these emails at 10 p.m. I understand we all have different working hours. Maybe that's the time that you need to do it, but please know that that's not the expectation. That's when you should be really focusing on your life resume and doing the things that bring you joy and bring you happiness. My email does not bring me joy or happiness.
I love that you said life resume. I do a very similar thing when I would do wellness lectures. I would ask individuals to tell me, who are you? Tell me who you are. And if it was a room full of CRNAs, every one of them would start off with, I'm a CRNA. I'm a rural practicing CRNA, or I work at a, ACT model. Or I work at a level 1 trauma center. Or I'm a faculty member. And I was like, usually when you ask someone who doesn't have kind of our
credentials.
Yeah, our credentials, what they'll say is, oh, I'm so and so, and I like to fish, and I have a wife, and I have, a husband, or I have X, Y, and Z. And here I am, like, I'm a CRNA and I work at the hospital. It's blah, blah, blah. And then one of my husband's friends, we went out to dinner one day, and his wife looked at me and said, "What do you do for fun?" And I was like, um, I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I like to read research articles. I don't know. So again, I'm trying to incorporate more of that work-life balance. Like you said, the life resume.
Yeah, I think that really is one of our jobs as faculty is to model those healthy behaviors. And I remember as a student, like being appalled if faculty would go on vacation. Like, what do you mean? I'm here, I'm doing it. But like, that's ridiculous. Of course. And so now I really have shifted. Like, this is a job. I recognize, like, you are in this program. This is your life. And it should be as it should be. Right now, this is your number one focus. But for me, this is a job. And I have paid time off. I have to take my paid time off. And I hope maybe they don't understand it now, but then when they're a practicing CRNA or maybe a future faculty member, then that's going to make it okay for them to have that boundary down the road.
Yeah, and telling the students, I always tell them, your time here is transient. This is like Groundhog Day for me. It just keeps going and going and going. So I don't, whereas you're looking forward to December because you're flying the coop, January 1, I'm right back. I just pop right back in the same location. So like you said, we have to role model and let them understand that, we're people too.
I think sometimes, I appreciate what you said, Crystal, about we all love shiny new thing, like going after the next thing, and we all want to be involved. And if you're doing your job well, as we all do, I know each of you does it well. We're asked to do more, and sometimes I feel that we have pressure on us if we want promotion and tenure to publish, to go to present at conferences, to engage in other professional development activities. And then there's the dreaded course evaluations where the students can have an anonymous opportunity to write whatever they want about us. And then there's NCE scores and COA compliance. There's so many things, so many pressures on us. And this is not a knock against students at all, but I do feel like it's in my short time in academia, there are a lot of protections in place for the students, which is wonderful. I want that. But it almost seems sometimes there aren't as many protections in place for faculty wellness and retention. And that's just been my personal experience. So sometimes I feel like we're getting pressure from numerous, even in the clinical setting. Sometimes I feel like if there's a complaint from a practitioner, let me tell you what you should be teaching these students, who taught them this? And it's like, we get it from all directions. Sometimes it feels, but in thinking about sort of institutional pressure to perform, what do you have set up, or what do you suggest programs have set up as far as faculty wellness? Because I know we try to model it, because I think the students are going to see, and I think student outcomes will show if there is a toxic faculty culture I would imagine within a program. What are your thoughts on institutional support, programmatic support, things that you have in place or you'd like to see in place?
That's such a great question. I just want to say, while you were speaking, I used to work with this dean that would say, it's too bad the students get in the way of the job. And it's so true, because we get so focused on, I have to do this, I have to do this presentation, I have to write this paper, I have to do this. But like, really, our focus should be the students. And like, those things important and absolutely necessary, but we lose sight on like why we started so often. And I find like every faculty member, you ask them what they love about teaching, and everybody says that light bulb moment, that moment that the students like get it, and then you see them get it. So anyway, while you were talking about that, I was thinking about it. It's like, oh, it's too bad sometimes the job gets in the way of the students. But I really think that mentorship is so valuable. And mentorship doesn't have to be a formal process where you're like meeting with a mentor and you're setting goals, but I like just having a counterpart, having somebody to be like, how would you handle this? Or can you look at this for me? Or how would you handle this? And just having somebody that's in the trench with you goes such a long way for me. And then from a programmatic standpoint, I think transparency in communication and decision making, like you can't feel like you're just being told what to do. It's got to be a collaborative environment where people's work is highlighted, their shared experiences. You guys know this, but I think so often we get stuck in the silo, or we want to be in our office and just get the work done, and we're all type A and we're going to do it the best way. And I'm that way to a fault too, but the most enjoyable work is done together. So I think finding ways to have a buddy, have somebody to work on things with you, they hold you accountable, you hold them accountable, being open and honest in communication. I think those are some of the best resources. The fundamentals, like not these, like not team building. Nobody likes team building. I'm sure that would be really helpful and powerful, but I just think being transparent.
I think also just a thought is, as you were talking, it made me think, I think sometimes we need to define what wellness means also, right? Wellness doesn't just mean time off, right? So wellness can also mean, for a faculty member, I imagine, being engaged in the things that fit well with your skill set. So if you want me to be well, do not put me in a lecture where I have to teach the anesthesia machine. That will make me unwell in a very strong way. I took my MAC certification today, and I did really bad on those questions, I can tell you. But put me in something where I can teach about, ENT or leadership, or, something that's in my wheelhouse. So I think as a faculty person, aligning our faculty teams, if we're in faculty leadership, with things that play to their skill sets, I think as a faculty leader, that's something that we can do. And yeah, those days where maybe today your wellness thing is going to be that you do get to have lunch in the lounge with your teammates instead of just wolfing it down at your desk, which is what I usually do, those kinds of things. So I think if we can also redefine what wellness means, maybe it's a day that we get to work virtually, so it's not necessarily a day off, but just that day that you're like, I don't want to go in and park today. And everything that I'm doing for work today, I can do from home. And recognizing some of those things can be wellness. We try to tell our students that wellness isn't just more days off. Let's redefine what wellness means and looks like, because there's probably more opportunities than we realize.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think wellness looks different for everyone. And like I said, you may be the machine, but if you put me in a pediatric dental case, that's where you're going to see me unwind. But I think, what the administration can do to assist is, like you said, transparency, clear work, what is expected. Because most of us are rule followers, right? We just need to know the rules, and kind of rotating some, maybe the higher demand assignments. So, just because employee A or faculty member A does a really good with doing the canvas shells, that doesn't mean every semester that's going to fall to them. So like you said, let people do things within their own wheelhouse, and then encourage them to set their own boundaries, right? Encourage that. I think what I see is when, my faculty or my people in administration take vacation, I love that, because that gives me permission to take it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great that you guys you mentioned mentorship, because for those listening, if you haven't checked out, we've recently had an episode on mentorship. So be sure to check out the previous episode on Airway Exchange. We've been talking about faculty mentorship and how important that is. And I think it's great you brought up, Erin, the topic of what is wellness, and that it can look differently for different people, but that it is such an important thing. And I hope that, we can, hopefully through mentorship and maybe some programmatic initiatives, I'm not sure, but try to change this idea that you've got to kill yourself to be successful at this job, and you've got to be up at night answering emails. And I think sometimes in the clinical world, there's that, work hard, play hard, but really work hard mentality. And I think that has been different, in that our students coming out, this is all anecdotal too, I hear, maybe more seasoned anesthetists in the clinical world saying they don't want to work. All they care about is work-life balance. But this generation is very much more, I think, in my experience, vocal about saying, no, I don't want to spend 60 hours a week in a hospital, or if I am, you're going to pay me for it. To go back to something that was brought up a little while ago, that sometimes when we do try to set boundaries, saying no isn't always well received. And I have a really hard time setting boundaries at work and saying no for fear of, if I take it to the worst case scenario, getting fired, right? But I want to be liked and I want to do well, but I also want to be well. So as a newer faculty, I'm taking in all that you're saying. And, I'm trying hard to turn my electronic devices all off at 8 o'clock. So I'm not answering emails in bed anymore because I don't want to associate sleep with, I'm having trouble sleeping. And if I'm associating my bed with work, I'm not going to sleep. So I appreciate, y'all's insight and y'all sharing your experience. So I'm curious, could you share what's something you're doing this holiday season for yourself that maybe gives us an idea of what wellness is to you, and maybe something that could be a tip for somebody listening, a faculty member listening, the holidays are a stressful time. The semester may be wrapping up. I imagine it's wrapping up for everybody. Maybe it's graduation for some people are in admission. So what's a tip for somebody this holiday season listening? You don't have to be doing it, but maybe a suggestion.
Well, I think my tip is remember this holiday is for you too. It's not just for you to do things for your family, and it's not for you to do things for your friends, right? And if doing something nice for your friends and your family are going to negatively impact you, rethink, right? Realign that. One thing that is great in my life right now is my sister-in-law is going to cook Thanksgiving. So instead of doing it here and cleaning and all that stuff, we have decided we're going to travel to her house and she's going to take care of everything. So again, not that my advice is to freeload off your family, but if it works and they're willing, feel free.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love that, Crystal. I don't know. I guess I don't know what this says about me, but I was thinking about some like work tips that I do. One thing I've started doing is in the morning after I've like looked at my calendar for the day, I just set myself like one goal. This is like the one thing I need to do today. And that just feels really nice lately when I know I've done like one thing, just crossing that off my list. So that will be my like holiday wish for everybody is just, adjust it feels so overwhelming when you're like, I have 5 things I need to do today, but like one thing feels a little more manageable and it feels really positive when that gets taken care of. And the other good tip I just received was, and I'm trying to also do this, is to make notes for my course on my syllabus at the top. And so that when I come back to review my course or like to set it up for the next year, I have all these notes like, this assignment didn't go well because I don't remember things from a year ago, or this test question was very bad. So instead of trying to remember these mental notes, like put them in my syllabus and save it. And so when I bring it up next year, it's there.
Erin, how about you? Do you have any thoughts as an experienced educator and administrator?
I think boundaries, I've heard that word a couple times. I think boundaries are really important. And it's hard. So I became program director 5 years ago. So not a terribly long time, but I had been in the education world. I graduated from the program that I currently work for. And our previous director, who was my program director, was the most selfless, kind, caring. Every year she hosted a potluck for each cohort. She gave a Christmas gift to every single student, just, was something with a handwritten card. Like we have 100 students, right? So I don't do that anymore. And it's not because I don't care about the students, but I think for me, recognizing what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of has been important, and not being afraid to do something different that works for you. I think that would be probably, so there may be other faculty members on your team who do just what I described. That is not something I quit sending Christmas cards 2 years ago in my personal life because I was like, man, the stress of getting all of that done was so awful that by the time I put the last one in the mail, I was grumpy and I was miserable. And so maybe it was having a significant birthday this year, but I have tried really hard for my own wellness to figure out what am I capable of, or how do I wish to spend my energy and my time? Because that's the only thing we all have the same amount of, right, in a day. And so for me, I had to realize I'm not going to be able to do it that way. And that's okay. This is my way of doing it. So that's probably with holidays. That was my thing. I told my husband just last night, do you think we should send cards again this year? He said, absolutely not. That was the best decision you ever made. And I said, okay, so we're not sending cards anymore. Everybody knows we love them, but we're just not doing that. So know yourself and then be confident sticking with it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think I've heard it said that, a lot of growing sometimes can be letting things go rather than picking up new things, figuring out what isn't working and letting it go. So I think that's beautiful.
How about you, Louisa?
Oh gosh. Well, specifically, I really am trying to sleep better. My sleep is just not great, and I'm obsessed with podcasts. That's one reason I love being a part of Airway Exchange, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on different aspects of wellness, and this week I've listened to 2 episodes of this podcast I love on sleep and the importance of sleep. I read in another book that having screens off that last hour or 2 before you go to bed can really help you, is one little way that you could try to get better rest. And so I personally am working on that to not be exposed to any type of screen for the last hour. So that's one little thing. I love, Leigh, that you said, I know I'm so guilty of being like, today I'm going to accomplish all 20 of these things. And then I beat myself up when, I only accomplished 3. But a lot of times I get interrupted by the reason, especially at the office, the reason that I'm there, right? Students. And I love talking to students. So anyway, or get it interrupted by a number of things. But I love that. Just picking one thing that's manageable. I love what each of you said, boundaries, all of it. So I want to ask real quick, not to put you on the spot, could you, one of you or both, maybe shed a little bit of light on before we wrap up, on the AAA Wellness micro credential?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for asking us. So, just a little background there. Previously, we were state peer advisors, and the state peer advisor program was specifically geared towards substance use disorder. And we also weren't really doing anything to continue that education. So, it was now the focus of the AANA that we've shifted to the Wellness Ambassador Network. It is a great, several self paced modules, all geared towards different aspects of wellness. And then when you complete this, they are CEU credits, and you earn a micro credential, and you get to join this great community called the Wellness Ambassador Network. And we, as the Wellness Committee, put in content. We alert you to different wellness aspects that are happening, and it's just created a nice community focused on wellness.
Yeah. Crystal, do you want to add anything on the micro credential?
Yes, I would encourage, if you don't know, if for the faculty listening, if they are unaware, that credential is available for residents free of charge. And it's a good way to spread information for the students to be able to support one another, to learn how to actively listen, to learn about resources available. I would highly encourage it, not just for our residents, but for us as well. So I've really enjoyed working with, and again, would not be a waste of your time. It would be a great asset to your toolkit and to be able to better help your residents.
Yeah, I think there really is phenomenal content that can help, if anyone listening is interested in learning more about wellness or questioning, well, what does wellness look like in my life? I think the content, it's a good variety of different aspects of wellness that I think anybody can take away something meaningful from. So I encourage all of our listeners, if you haven't yet, to look into getting your AANA Wellness micro-credential. Thank you. Is there anything that we haven't asked that you guys want to add or say?
I was just going to say, not that we're adding to your to-do list to do the micro credential. You could definitely break it up and do it over time.
Yes. Yeah.
And do not make that a one lump sum and add
Yeah.
to, make
Add
it
it to
part of it as. And I was just going to add, like what Leigh said, if you can have one positive goal for the day, it helps with that little dopamine. We release dopamine when we get to check something off. So it can be something small. And so if you can't tackle a whole article that day, read a couple abstracts, just something small, check it off. And don't be afraid to ask for help in any aspect of your life. If you need to talk to somebody for, wellness, if you just are having a bad day, find a friend to vent to. It'll make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and Crystal and I are here. So we're faculty and always willing to share and to talk about. It's hard. We're doing hard work, but we're doing meaningful work, and I think that that's what keeps me in it.
Erin, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, this was wonderful hearing from you, Crystal and Leigh. Such great information, great insights. And I know that I've found some things that I will take away from this. And that's the whole goal of us being here for these times together. So really appreciate you guys joining us and talking through this really, really important topic.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for your expertise and for sharing your time and your wisdom. And for our listeners, we hope you'll tune into our next episode, which is going to focus on student wellness. And as always, leave us comments. Let us know any topics you'd like us to address and or if you'd like to be a guest on our show. And don't forget to register for EDGE. The formerly known as ADCE is now known as EDGE, which stands for Educate, Develop, Grow, and Engage. And if you want to learn more about wellness at EDGE, there's a wellness track you can follow, and strongly encourage you to attend the anesthetist in recovery meeting. It's a great way if you are, Leigh and Crystal mentioned reaching out for help. If you think you need help or know someone who needs help, attending an AIR meeting is a very safe and welcoming space in which to maybe find out more about that arena, specifically the arena of substance use disorder. But sometimes we also talk about suicide in there. So anyway, EDGE is being held February 4th through 7th at the Omni in Louisville, Kentucky. So if you haven't done so, I hope you'll register and we hope to see you there. So thanks for tuning in.